This is Gigi Sabat, and you're listening to the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Rabia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gigi. So good to be here.
Likewise, it's such an honor to have you here today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us more about you and where are you from?
I am from Toronto, Canada, and a little bit about me. I'm Rabia Piracha. I'm a life and relationship coach. I help people find the life they love and the love of their life. And I'm also a co host of a podcast, and I'm a social entrepreneur.
I love it. And now, recently, you just hosted a vigil on peace. And I am so honored to have been a speaker at the peace vigil that you just had. Now, tell us a little bit more about why peace means so much to you, Rabia.
That's a great question. Peace is something that I think we all want. A peace of mind, peace within, a feeling of just ease. And I think peace brings us that. And in particularly now, peace became really important to me because of the world situation that we have in front of us. And I saw so much unrest and so much dis-ease. And it was just, I thought there has to be a better way and, you know, to come together in a way that is neutral, but from a common ground, a place that we can all connect with each other and not make it political, not make it about anything but the pure essence of peace. Non political, no agendas, no biases, but connecting as human beings.
I love it. Very powerful vision. And I just love your vigils that you host. It's very, very powerful. Now, again, let's continue to talk about peace. And so what are some changes that you'd like to see in our society?
Changes. I think it begins with having a clear and open mind. It's very simple. And a clear and open mind to me means that we put what we know aside and always walk into every room with a blank slate. And I think because we're so deeply connected with our opinions and our point of views and our, cultures and our natural biases, we're not always in a clear and open mind space. So becoming more conscious and more present to the moment that we're in versus, being stuck in what I had learned, all the things that we bring in with us. And ultimately, I think if we can start doing this just a little bit at a time, what's going to, in my opinion, happen is that we are going to be more compassionate. We are going to be more understanding. We are going to be more aware of each other's human needs versus our own opinions and beliefs, which there is nothing wrong with it. But we don't always interact harmoniously and in a peaceful way when that's always at the forefront.
That's true. Now, tell us a little bit more about your upcoming peace vigil.
Well, the upcoming Peace Vigil is on May 19th, 2024, and it'll be at 6 p.m., 6 to 8 p.m. And we're hoping that we get as many people there because, we want to connect on this level of humanity, but I think music and listening to people who are exuding, practicing, and leading with peace. And also, peace is contagious, just like other things. And so, if we see peace around us, we automatically feel peaceful. And when we feel peaceful, we then automatically show up with peace and we spread it too. So, it's a reciprocal and a very expansive place to be. and we can always have more.
That's very true. Now, where can folks register for this peace vigil?
So you can find us on the We Believe in Peace Facebook group, and you can become a member of our Facebook group. And also, I have a Zoom link to the to register for the Peace Vigil as well. And so people can reach me directly on Instagram or coachingwithrabia@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to send them more information.
Excellent. Make sure to register today. Now, Rabia, let's talk about the challenges that you faced in your life. Tell us a little bit more about the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome those challenges?
So the challenges were many, and when you overcome something and you look back at it, it doesn't look the same. And so I'll briefly share with you some of the challenges and the barriers I had in my life, and also, how I see them differently as well. And so, I come from a culture where tradition plays a huge role. And so I was engaged at 13. And, growing up in the West, that was a little bit foreign to me, but it happened to me. And for the longest time, that was that weighed on me because I felt like my life had been taken away from me. And at 13, you don't really understand life. You don't really understand what's happening. So that was one of my challenges. I never fit into a mold of any culture or any place. So that was another challenge, that I never felt like I fit in. And so I felt like a misfit a lot. And then I lost my father to cancer, which was another huge it had a huge impact on my life. And we just, it's been 36 years now, and we just honored him on during Ramadan, on the 15th of Ramadan, which is when he passed away. But his Western calendar anniversary is coming up on May 1st, which is just around the corner as well. But so those were three main things. And, my arranged marriage to a cousin, and then being divorced at 29, and at 40 I found myself divorced twice. So lots of challenges. And I think the in hindsight, what I've discovered is that each of those events that happened to me, it wasn't that they happened, it's I didn't know how to navigate those events, how to deal with my emotions, how to communicate in a way that would make me feel that I was seen and heard. And looking back, I can say it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. So I could, look within and start learning about myself, and not always be in a state of reaction. And so for the longest time, I was in a state of reaction. And that was the challenge, to overcome the state of reaction.
And how did you overcome it?
I decided that later in life, about a decade ago, I was 44, just over a decade ago now. And I was 44, and nothing was really feeling right. Things looked great. Everything was wonderful. But there were some things that weren't feeling right. And I just decided that it's time to shift gears. I had outgrown my life, but I didn't change the life I had outgrown. I didn't make these changes. So I had to shift gears. And in shifting the gears, I had to learn how to shift this gear. How do I go from gear one to Rabia 1.0 to Rabia 2.0? Because I'd just been pushing along in Rabia 1.0, not making those adaptations and adaptations and minor changes. And so I just decided I'm going to be somebody totally different. And by what I mean by that is, I'm going to put aside what I know about myself, what I know about my culture, what I have learned, and put on a new lens and say, I don't know myself. I want to discover myself, and I don't want to repeat my life as I've seen it, as I know it to be. And not that everything was wrong, but there were some important things, such as I wasn't able to stand up for myself or say no to people. So I was a people pleaser, or I would do things that would be rebellious rather than more mature and more aware of my surroundings and myself. So sometimes I made decisions that were much more abrupt and harsh rather than really methodical and thought out. And so at 44, when I hit my rock bottom, I had a major breakdown. And that was when I decided that things have to change. And I started pursuing new, I actually stumbled onto the law of attraction. And the law of attraction was something that is, I absolutely believe we all live it. And it's just about what are we doing and what are we attracting. And so when I started learning about the law of attraction and really understanding it, I realized that I was attracting those things to me because that's what I thought about. I thought about what I didn't want, not about what I want. I thought about what was going wrong, not what was going right. I was a complainer, never in gratitude. And so when all of these things started making sense, I started going to meetups in Toronto, and I started just surrounding myself with people that were living what I wanted to live. And in doing so, I discovered that there's a lot more to me than what I had known. And 10 years ago, if you told me that I'd be a social entrepreneur or even hosting a peace vigil, I also ran a nonprofit for 10 years, that I would be doing that work to empower women to empower themselves, I would have been the first person to laugh. But it goes to show you that not knowing ourselves is possibly the biggest purpose. Let me rephrase. Not knowing ourselves is a gift, and discovering ourselves can be the biggest gift because we sometimes find our purpose in what we discover. That was
Absolutely.
my case.
And you found yourself. Now, what message do you have for an individual who doesn't know themselves?
Have opposite days. You know, as kids, we did opposite days. We, if we were going to say no, we would say yes. So I really invite everyone to have opposite days. It's not that you have to be opposite, but in being opposite, you're going to find out something about yourself that you didn't know the day before. And that sometimes is where the ahas start happening, because we can't see new results by using the same old computer. It's going to do the same thing. If we don't run the antivirus or the adware in our computers, the same bugs are going to show up depending on which program we open, depending on which trigger is impacted. So if we want to get rid of or start healing, ultimately it's about healing. If we want to start healing those things, we really need to become aware, and through opposite days or just stopping ourselves in the middle of the day and say, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Simple as that. And program it into your phone. It doesn't have to be complicated. Put a timer in your phone, ask yourself the question, let it remind you so that you don't have to remind yourself and forget, because it's easy to forget when you're busy. So use technology. So those are two tips I would
I
say.
love it. Excellent. Now, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness, Rabia?
walking with purpose and living a life of happiness, I would say your biggest purpose in life is to know yourself well. I think the first and foremost in my experience is to really spend time in solitude and discover yourself in a way that you previously didn't know. And also, second thing I would say is accept yourself.
Why?
And
Why is it so important?
it's so important to accept yourself because we have an inner critic. And that inner critic is constantly, and it's natural, all of us have it. It's not a bad thing, but it's to use that inner critic not to not to make you feel like you're not enough. And sometimes when we don't catch that inner critic and we don't turn it off, and we're constantly, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. It's hard to be happy when the operating system is you're not good enough. But knowing yourself and knowing that that inner critic is there, and those things that the inner critic says may be true, but it's not all of you, it's a part of you. So we make that critic our identity. And it's important to know that you are not one part. You are so big that there is that one part that the critic talks about or you feel about yourself where you lack. There's another part that you are so expansive in. And it's important to say, oh, I'm both those things, not just my mistakes, not just what I'm not good at. And by accepting ourselves, and this is something that I've done, by accepting myself and accepting my darkest, deepest things that I don't like. But I think the key is to know that you're human. And by default, imperfection is who we are. Imperfect is who we are. And so if I'm critical about my imperfections, then I'm denying myself of my human experience. And when you humanize yourself, when you become human, I find that that level of acceptance goes up. And with it, the level of happiness goes up as well because there's nothing wrong. This is your default. You weren't meant to be perfect. You were meant to learn from your life experiences and make mistakes. And so when you put those two together, learn from your mistakes, you go from being faulty to finding your healing because there's an emotional state and a mental state, right? They're two things. And addressing the emotions is what's going to make us happy. And then making our thoughts work with the healing process that we're in.
I love it. Now, let's talk about mindset. How important is it to have a positive mindset?
A positive mindset is crucial, but I don't believe in 24/7 positivity.
Tell us why.
So, well, I think that what's important is, so what I find is there's a positivity is being positive all the time, and positivity is like a balloon. Okay. And if you take a pin and prick a balloon, what happens? You poke a pin into a balloon, it bursts, it pops. So, what I believe is in mind power. And mind power is not the absence of negativity. Mind power is the ability to rise above the negativity. And mindset is about rising above the negativity, not being a Pollyanna and saying, oh, everything's going to be perfect. Everything's going to be fine. Yes, of course it is. That's how things work. Nothing stays the same. But understanding that I have a role to play And by just speaking, but just being positive 5 minutes a day, but deliberately, intentionally, and consciously putting positive thoughts into your mind every day will reduce your negativity, will increase how you deal with negativity, and it will strengthen your mindset to adversity and make you positive, but not a fake positive, a mindset, a solid positive person who can deal with the negative.
Very intriguing and insightful. Thanks so much, Rabia. Now, where can the audience find you?
You can find me at my website at rabiapiracha.com. You can find me on Instagram or on TikTok, and you can reach out to me at my email. And Gigi, I can give you that email, and if you can include it in the link somewhere, then they can reach me there as well.
Absolutely. And
sorry, I missed that, Gigi.
And what is your email?
Oh, pardon me. It's Rabia. Sorry, I will give you my coaching with Rabia at gmail.com. That would be my email. That's best right now.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, that's coaching with Rabia at gmail.com. And Rabia, thank you again for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. Such an honor. And you have a blessed day, my friend.
Thank you. It was my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.